Richards, I represent the migratory bird production areas.
Leland Myers with the wastewater world.
Angela Gong with Forestry, Fire and State Lands.
Lee Perry, Box Elder County Commission.
Darren Hess, we were based in water, but I represent the public water suppliers.
John Crofts, Davis County Commission.
Good morning, Jessica Wade, Bureau of Land Management.
Okay, over here.
There we go. We got
Over
him.
there. Over there. Sorry. You're out of luck.
Casey Root, USGS, Utah Water Science Center.
Jan Streifel, League of Women Voters.
Christine Rumsey, USGS.
Linda Freitas, Friends of Great Salt Lake.
Georgie Corkery, Great Salt Lake Institute at Westminster.
John Urey with Water for the West.
Dan Watt with Water for the West.
R. Jeffrey Hicks, Utah Airboat Association.
Mark Reynolds, US Magnesium.
Jeff Denblaker, Jacobs Engineering.
Carla Trettleman, retired social scientist.
Dan Strouk with Utah Audubon.
Micah Safeson, the Office of the Great Salt Lake Commissioner.
Aspen Johnston, Office of the Great Salt Lake Commissioner.
Carly Payne, Division of Water Resources.
Becca Free, Division of Water Resources.
Emma Whitaker, Forestry, Fire and State Lands.
Dawson Clegg, Cache Water District.
Nathan Dowgs, Cache Water District.
Sadie Braddock, Great Salt Lake Social Scientist.
Chandler Rosenberg, Stewardship, Utah.
Trip Armstrong, Great Salt Lake Watershed Enhancement Trust.
Adam Wickline, Great Salt Lake Watershed Enhancement Trust.
Shayla Adams, Great Salt Lake Watershed Enhancement Trust.
Bronte DeRoshi, Great Salt Lake Water Enhancement Trust.
Eileen Lukens, Utah State University.
Good morning, Candace Hastenjager, Director at the Division of Water Resources.
Warren Peterson, it's been a long drive to get here.
Take it there.
Scott and Sandy Young were private citizens from Bear River, Wyoming.
Maria Monker, Communication and PR for the Northwestern Band of the Shoshone Nation.
Mark Mulligan, Waterleaf Resources.
Steve Morrey, Waterleaf Resources.
And Paul, our important AV person.
If you take the mic outside, we get all the little kids out there to introduce themselves too. Thanks everyone for being here. We would like to offer the agenda to the council for approval. Anybody want to make that motion?
So moved. Tom Ward.
Tom, okay. We have a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Lee. Second by Lee. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And then we have the minutes that were submitted for the last meeting in March. Any agenda, any corrections or additions to those minutes? If not, could we have a motion to approve them? Motion. Do we have a second? Lee?
Yeah, second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We have a couple of liaison introductions. First of all, we have Jessica Wade with the Federal Land Management, and we'll let you take it away.
Hey.
We do. We have Darren, who's going to give us a long lecture on water. So he can start if you want.
Yeah, and do you want me to go up there?
You
This
can
should
do
be
it
fine.
wherever you want.
Yeah,
If you don't want to,
I'll
if you
just
don't
stay
want to
right
stand up
here.
there, you can sit down there.
Yeah, I'll just stay right here. You can see me okay. Yeah, so I was just asked to maybe give a little summary of some of the challenges that are affecting public water suppliers and some of the issues that we're dealing with. And so, development is one of them that we're dealing with. We've recently been meeting with Weber County, and they've said that they've got potentially 20,000 homes that they want to build out in western Weber County. There west of the river, out by 12th Street, kind of out in that little mountain area. And so, the timing of that, it's going to be a while, obviously, before, this thing gets built. We have infrastructure that's going to be built to service that. But that's going to be a large demand on our water supplies because historically, these are lands that have not received irrigation water previously. So this is now new water that's going to lands that historically have not been irrigated. So where's that water supply going to come from for this new development? And so we need to ensure that we're planning effectively, for development. We want to continue economic activity in Utah. I know some people, as soon as they get here, want to close the door and say, I'm here, now close the door and no growth, And that's really not what we want to see as far as economic activity in Utah. We can't really do something like that and continue to flourish. And so, that's one large demand that we have. And we've been working, really since the year 2000 on water conservation programs to help conserve water in Utah. And, as we've continued to get more aggressive with water conservation, that is really the water now that we will use as we develop into the future. The savings that we see from water conservations will be the next water supply project. It's not cheap, right? It's quite expensive, but that is an opportunity to save water and have that water be used for new development, if that's what we want to do. I mean, we're all in this together. Obviously, we know the Great Salt Lake is another huge demand as well, and we know the Great Salt Lake needs more water. So, how are we going to do that? I mean, really, what is killing the Great Salt Lake is outdoor water use, right? The indoor water use, typically 95+% of that returns back to the system. The indoor water use is not hurting the Great Salt Lake. It's the outdoor water use that is really hurting the Great Salt Lake. If you have, lawns and gardens, you're sprinkling your lawn, maybe that water goes down 10, 11, 12 inches at most. It really is not feeding the underground aquifers. It's very shallow irrigation. A lot of it's evapotranspirating off. And so, you really don't have a lot of that water returning to the system. I mean, we've always said, in an ag use, maybe 50% of that water, returns to the system. But I would say in a residential irrigation use, much less of that water is returning back to the system. It's just evapotranspirating off and going to Iowa, And so they've got our water now that we used to have here from the residential irrigation that's taking place. So, maybe it's really hard to say, but there's a large component of that is not returning back to the system. And so that's the concern is shallow residential irrigation that does not return back to the system. And, I would say maybe 80% of that water does not return back to the system. So with that kind of deficit, those are the concerns that we're dealing with. So the other issue for us is we really hate to put in turf today that we're going to pay to remove tomorrow. It doesn't make sense to put turf in now that we're going to pay to remove tomorrow. And I think we're still doing that. I mean, we are putting turf in today that we are going to pay somebody to remove tomorrow. And it just, from an economic sense, it doesn't make sense to do that. And so what do we have to do to change how we're currently developing with our new development? Because I really don't want to pay people to remove turf that they're installing over the next 5 to 10 years. It doesn't make sense. Let's ensure that our development is happening properly now, so we're not paying people to remove it. And then let's use low water use turf. You know, the Kentucky bluegrass, we've got to, stop, right? The Kentucky bluegrass. You have the Tahoma 31s, which is a hybrid Bermuda. It looks beautiful in July, okay? It takes 70% less water than a Kentucky bluegrass. Now, it doesn't look awesome in April, okay? It takes a while to green up. So you have to be used to a kind of a brown lawn until May 1st, May 15th. But then it can look like a soccer field from May 15th to September 15th. And then it might go it'll go dormant earlier than a Kentucky bluegrass. But we have to be okay with these kinds of changes to our landscapes. And that's when we put in minimal turf. Let's use the low water use turf. But let's minimize the turf that we're putting in now. That's what's killing the Great Salt Lake. So, and we've worked with our communities and cities, and there's some cities that say, we like how our city looks. We don't want to adopt your landscape ordinances because we like the way things currently look. Well, the issue is our water, our water practices and the water that we have can't support this way of life as we move forward. We've always talked about the Bear River project. That would be our next source of water. We know that project, as it's currently contemplated, will not be built. So what form or fashion of a project will be built now, if it will be built? And if we don't have, that's always the supply of water that as public water suppliers we've relied on as the next, big tranche of water for us. If that's not on the table, where is this water going to come from for all of these water uses that we have? And I know people say, well, you should just release more water to the Great Salt Lake. Well, we can definitely do that. But if our reservoirs here at Weaver Basin, they're almost full, okay? So we've had another good year. Reservoirs are filled up. But if I release that 500,000 acre feet in all the reservoirs that we have in northern Utah to the Great Salt Lake, it would last about 3 months out there in the Great Salt Lake, and then it would evaporate off. So I could drain all my reservoirs, put it out in the Great Salt Lake, and in 3 months it'd be gone. So is that what we really want? No, that's not what people want. They still need water to drink. They still need water for their purposes. And so we can't just let that water evaporate in the Great Salt Lake. So there's a lot of competing demands here as we move forward, and a lot of issues for us to solve. And I know that's why we're here, is to talk about these issues. But I think those are some of the issues that are affecting, public water suppliers, as we move forward. And I know, ag, there's been a lot of work on that side as well, and moving ag to be more efficient. Need to continue that process with our ag producers. But I hate to make them the bad guy, right? Because they're feeding us. So we need to cut them some slack. They're feeding us, and we need to support them in their efforts. And let's be honest, it's incredibly expensive to make changes to your ag processes. And most of these farmers that are eking out a living farming don't have money to do these programs. And so obviously they need grant programs to help them out. But, let's not make the ag community the bad guy for sure. And so, again, so many competing interests. I have contract water holders I have to deliver water to that have water rights on the system. They've had water rights on the system for years and years. And I have to deliver water to those contract water holders based on the water rights that they own. And so, anyway, maybe that's just a little summary of kind of the issues that are facing public water suppliers and what we're trying to do. So.
Thank you. So you want the tough question? So we have a toolbox we put together by the council, by our consultant SWCA. Is Lily here? Osceola. And she's trying to get cities to listen to this message. And I think she's having a tough time getting a lot of appointments to meet with the cities. What in your opinion, is it going to take to get communities to adopt, I'd like to use the term water-wise, but I really want to say very conservative ordinances, like you've just mentioned.
Yeah.
Reducing turf grass substantially. We're talking about 20% of what we see now, and then going with water-wise grass if we have it. What's it going to take?
I mean, what we've tried to do is, with our Flip Your Strip program, in order to get a rebate from Weber Basin and actually flip your strip, we're requiring cities to adopt our landscape ordinances. So in order to qualify for those programs, you have to, adopt those. And so, but the issue is so then you have residents calling their cities, beating them up saying, hey, I need you to adopt their landscape ordinances so that I can flip my strip and get reimbursed by Weber Basin. And then the cities are calling us and saying, hey, call off your dogs that are calling us saying that, in order to qualify for your program, that we have to approve these landscape ordinances. I'm like, they're not our dogs. They're your dogs. They live in your city, right? But we're just asking you to work with us and approve these ordinances. And they said, well, our city likes the way it currently looks. And so we don't want to approve these ordinances. And I said, well, then you're going to get more phone calls from your residents, right? That's just the way it's going to be. So that's a program that we've done, and that was a carrot that we put out there, and I think it has worked. I mean, we've got probably 20 cities now that have adopted these landscape ordinances and qualified for the Flip Your Strip program. Not this Flip Your Strip, but actually to go into your landscape and flip that lawn as well. But that's a small component, right? We really have to, I think we need to look at this as a statewide effort, not just a Northern Utah effort, but a statewide effort to say, we need to make sure that we're developing differently than we've historically developed. And I don't know how many city council meetings, planning commission meetings we've been over the last 5 years to try to help educate. Some city councils will listen, some will look at their phone the whole time we're presenting and won't even listen to the message that's been prepared. So there's just different types of interest based on different folks, and some people aren't interested in hearing this message at all. So yeah, how do we get everybody on the same page? I don't know that I have the answer on how to do that. We've been trying to move these programs forward, but it's difficult at best.
So the takeaway message is everybody here has to make 10 calls a day to their local city or municipality to encourage them to make sure that they have water-wise landscaping ordinances in place. There you go.
There you go.
Okay, Jessica. Thank you, Darren.
Yep.
Oh, thank you for your patience, everybody. Haven't presented on Google before. So, I'm Jessica Wade, Bureau of Land Management, and Angela asked me to present just general BLM, and so this probably is a review for many of you, but this is my presentation. So a little bit about me. I am from Utah and moved around the West in my federal job in wildland fire for, I worked in fire for 28 years. And then I moved to a field manager job here in Salt Lake field office for the last 5 years. All the BLM land across the lake that you can see in the distance. So the BLM on my computer my screen is broken. I'm gonna slip over here. In the West, we managed 245 million acres and 700 million acres of subsurface. So I'm going to do some little trivias because I went down some big rabbit holes when I was developing this presentation, and I think it's pretty cool. The Homestead Act, and when the government was trying to get people to settle, which we'll get into in a minute, in 1916 or before 1916, you got the deed to the land and the minerals underneath. But after 1916, the federal government realized that was a moneymaker. And so anytime homesteading still existed until like the 1960s and 70s in some places. But you didn't get the minerals with it. So it's complicated for the BLM to manage subsurface minerals when you have private land on top or whatever state or other lands, and we still have to manage the minerals, and there's mineral royalties underneath there too. So sorry about that. Okay, and primarily in the West, and our mission is to sustain the health, diversity, and productivity of public lands for the use of enjoyment of present and future generations. It's a complex mission. Here's the BLM lands across the West. Lots of it in Alaska too. Okay, so as I said, at first these lands were used to encourage homesteading and westward migration, go settle it, and then we can claim it for the United States. Back in the day, there were many countries that had laid claim. And there were, of course, lots of Native Americans out here. And so our founding fathers had a great idea to just encourage people to go settle. So in 1785, which was 2 years after the Revolutionary War was ended, Congress at that time, I mean, lots of foresight here, required organized surveys of the public lands, or like all the lands out west. And it really is only recently dawned on me how really daunting that was. I mean, they tried to go and survey every mile of open space in the West. Unbelievable. And I mean, really primarily so that it could be sold, or homesteaded, sold to supplement the treasury, and to of course settle the West and like claim it. So the effort to try to sell lands happened for 100 years until about 1895, until people realized that we need to be able to preserve this and use this, because people were using it for grazing and for mining at the turn of the 1900 and the turn of the century, and it was literally the wild, wild west. And people realized that there needed to be some organization and some organization over the lands to manage it. So let's see here. So also there was a lot of looting and destruction of the archaeology sites and other cultural sites, and people laid claim to the limited water in the West, and that needed to be shared amongst all the people too, as we know. That's still pretty important. Okay, so I went over a lot of this, but we're going into the 1920 or so, need for mining regulations, because everyone was kind of doing their own thing, and grazing also, as we know, like super overgrazing of the West, and the people that were here making their living from grazing were really, it was a big outcry, and they said, look, we can't be here if we can't raise our cows because there's no grass. So that needed to be managed as well. So 1946, the BLM was established, and it existed mostly for mining and grazing for 30 more years, until 1976, when the Federal Land Policy Management Act was enacted by Congress, and that gave rise to the current mission of not just mining and grazing, but preservation of certain lands, of realty actions, and that was the end of homesteading, essentially. So we do a lot, but I will, did that not come through? Oh, yeah, okay. So just a little bit about the public land survey system that started in 1780 something, 1795. These surveyors surveyed, if anyone knows familiar with maps and township ranges and sections, these people were out there by hand doing it with a chain, and they lugged these chains across everywhere. But when the Bureau of Land Management and Public Lands were established, the sections 2, 16, 32, and 36 were given to the states for schools, and so those are modern-day sitla lands. We also, not depicted in the graphic, is the railroad land grants are also part of the complexity to encourage railroad construction during the time of Golden Spike and stuff. So those were all very thoughtful. Whoops! Oh, that's a school. It was real thought out of wanting to make sure that other things were funded. So these are old surveyors, early 1800s. Okay, well, so we have a really complex mission: sustained yield and protect and enhance a natural environment. So our agency is very political. There's a lot of polarizing forces, and we need to make decisions to do the right thing for the land on both sides of the coin here. Public lands in Utah, the yellow, of course. Lots of people are familiar with this, but it's 23 million acres and 36 million of subsurface. Okay, and we'll get into West Desert here, closer to home. 2 points, well, we're adjacent to the urban area of the Wasatch Front, obviously. And I don't, 7.7 million acres for the West Desert District. And back. And of course, you can see the railroad lands up in Box Elder County and West Box Elder County. You can see all those checkerboard. That was a railroad land grant. And lots of complexities with different ownerships, including the Department of Defense there and the Utah Test and Training Range. Okay, so here's what we manage. All the beautiful pictures in this room, which I'm astounded every time I come here. I love this place. You know, wildlife, fisheries, aquatics, all the habitats. We don't manage the thing though. That's the DWR's job. We have a lot of outdoor recreation that we really are trying to organize because, as you know, we have a ton of new people recreating these days. Lots of people getting outdoors, which is great. And we're trying to catch up. We have 2 herds of wild horses on the Salt Lake field office side, and 2 more down in Fillmore, and there's several more down in Cedar City. So we have a fair amount in Utah, but not as much as in Nevada. They have so many. We love our horses. This timber picture is not in Salt Lake, but we do have some timber that we're trying to get to harvest here in the next year. Of course, we have a lot of grazing, oil, gas mining, and realty, but we don't have a lot of oil or gas mining here on the western side, although there's some potash and gypsite and magnesium. There's a lot of things, but not the oil and gas push as there is these days. But we are looking at geothermal, other things. Cultural and historic resources. Got a lot of petroglyphs. Transcontinental Railroad, lovely place, one of my favorites. And we do some vegetation work, a lot of it to reduce fire hazard and decrease the pinyon juniper encroachment. Of course, we have wildfires. Lots of that, not as much in the last few years, but the West Desert is definitely has their fair share of very large wildfires because of the invasive grasses. And law enforcement, especially around the urban areas here, they're very busy. So how do we fit here? Well, complex problem takes a lot of people, right? And you know, no one really has all the answers themselves, but I certainly believe that the collaborative effort is extremely important, and we can only do it as a group and collaborating together. But BLM really appreciates being at the table, and this group is really important, all of you. So thank you. Thanks for letting me present.
Any questions? If not, thank you very much.
All right.
We now have an update from the Office of the Great Salt Lake Commissioner, Aspen.
Morning, everybody. My name is Aspen Johnston. I'm the Great Salt Lake Water Coordinator for the southern part of the Great Salt Lake Basin for the Office of the Great Salt Lake Commissioner. I'm here to provide an update on our office. We provided one at the last GSLAC meeting as well, of course. And a lot of the items I'm going to talk about today are related to the discussion points from last time. We do have some helpful updates. So we can jump right in. The first announcement I'd like to make is that Hannah Fries from the Utah Department of Agriculture and Food has been selected as the new Deputy Great Salt Lake Commissioner. Her position will become effective June 1st of 2025. And we are really, really, really excited to have her on the team. I think anybody who knows Hannah understands why that's such a big win for us. She has, a lot of great relationships within the ag community. She works with them regularly. She, of course, facilitates the agricultural water optimization program. And all of that experience, I think, is going to be really invaluable to our office as we work to engage those agricultural water users and stakeholders to find mutually beneficial ways to conserve, dedicate, and deliver water to the Great Salt Lake. And I think having her on the team will also help us set up the Great Salt Lake Water Delivery Program very, very effectively. And that program, for those who aren't familiar with the name, is the program we're using to distribute the $50 million grant from the Bureau of Reclamation. So we're really excited to have her join the team and really excited to learn from her experience and be able to leverage that. Speaking of the Bureau of Reclamation Award, last time I presented, I said that the funds were subject to a freeze. That freeze has since been lifted, which is great news, of course. There has been some sort of continued back and forth surrounding the availability of those funds to us when we actually go to make use of them and pay out those funds to the project applicants that are selected through the process. But the most up-to-date information that we have from the Bureau is that there aren't really any barriers to us being able to make effective use of those funds. So really great news. But again, because of all the sort of uncertainties surrounding the administration, we're continuing to be really vigilant for any potential updates that might change that and make sure that we're ready to work with that or pivot so that we can make the best use of that fund. We are, to that end, we are still on track to meet the milestones that we've laid out for ourselves. So we'll be issuing the initial RFP in the summer. I've also been speaking a lot about sort of highlighting or assembling the evaluation committee that will be comprised of individuals with the responsibility of evaluating the projects submitted for review for this funding. We're still working on that, but we do hope to get an email out to the individuals who will be on that committee this week, maybe later today or tomorrow, and then start scheduling a time to meet. So we're making good progress there, but more work to do for sure. So stay tuned for more information. Last time I also gave an update on legislative changes, these largely sort of centered around House Bill 520 water entity amendments. I kind of described what changes would take place last update, but we have been continuing to work with the Great Salt Lake Watershed Enhancement Trust to, in the standard capacity that we have, but we're also having those conversations we need to have in order to be able to prepare to hit the ground running once we once the Great Salt Lake Commissioner is added as a member of that council or his designee, and once our office's transactions are expected to be submitted to the Trust Council for recommendation. So all of those changes take effect at the start of the fiscal year, July 1st, 2025. So they are coming up pretty fast, and we're going to be ready to hit the ground running with our friends at the Trust. Otherwise, we are, I touched on this last time. It won't necessarily be news, but we are still, of course, working throughout the basin, myself and Micah Safeston, to engage with stakeholders and find opportunities to conserve, dedicate, and deliver 10% to try to find that 250,000 acre foot figure of additional inflow. So we're starting pretty small this year, mostly just trying to learn lessons and come to an understanding of how we can really effectively implement this effort next year and lease substantially more water. So really excited to see where that goes, and I think we have some promising foundations to build on. And we are, of course, still interested in seeking out additional opportunities to help fund any research that can help us understand the basin better or the lake better, and just continue to look for opportunities to conserve, dedicate, and deliver water for the Great Salt Lake. I don't have any other substantial updates aside from that, so I'm happy to take any questions, but I appreciate you giving me the time, and yeah, turn it back.
You have some potential you're looking to fund for information. Like, is that just in the Salt Lake Basin, or are you looking at other basins like Bear River, or Weaver River, anything like that?
I think we would be open to any ideas that yield a benefit for the lake. So if it's in one of the surrounding basins, I think that would be something we would want to consider for sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Aspen? Not, thanks for the update.
Yeah, thank you all very much. Have a good day.
We have a presentation from Waterleaf about their pilot project. Maybe you could introduce yourselves as you get up there.
Leland, do you want them to go before Marcelle?
What?
Do you want Marcelle to go first or
Oh,
after?
yeah,
She's
I'm
on the
sorry.
agenda first.
Whoops. Oops. Waterleaf, sit down. Marcelle, speak up.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay? Okay, good. Am I going to be able to share my screen?
Yes, Marcelle, that would be fine. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't know if you needed to do anything. Sorry. Not working. Okay, there we go. All right, are you able to see anything?
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Sorry I can't be there in person. I know there's a whole team from the Great Salt Lake Watershed Enhancement Trust there, and very excited to have them there. I'm happy to be able, on everyone's behalf, provide an update for the Trust's activities. Because I'm not sure everybody has all the background information, I am going to repeat a little bit about how the Trust started, but it'll be very brief. So, landmark legislation in 2022 that established a $40 million fund to implement a water trust for Great Salt Lake to benefit the lake and its wetlands. National Audubon Society and the Nature Conservancy were chosen to implement and put that money to use. We jointly manage the Great Salt Lake Watershed Enhancement Trust. We have an independent fiduciary that is the Community Foundation of Utah. That is something that was provided for in the legislation, HB 410. And they hold the $40 million grant, at least what's remaining of that. And then we work very closely with the state of Utah. Obviously, we'll be coordinating significantly. Oh, it says you guys can't see the slides advancing. Is that true?
We can see the slides, you just don't have it on presentation mode, I don't think.
I don't. Oh, shoot.
Hit the bottom button on the right. Down a little further, over to the right. One that looks like a presentation.
Yeah, I thought it was. How's that?
Click on that one. Go there.
Sorry. This was supposed to be not so hard. Can you see that?
We can see it. Yeah, it's just still not in presentation mode, but we can see it.
Okay, I'm not quite sure how to solve that problem. Sorry. In any event, obviously we work closely with the Great Salt Lake Commissioner's Office. You heard that the Commissioner will be joining the Trust Advisory Council here starting in July. We also work really closely with the Utah Division of Forestry, Fire, and State Lands and the Division of Wildlife. Both of those entities are entities that hold water and put it to beneficial use at the lake when we do water transactions. Our staffing is such that we have an executive committee made up from Audubon and TNC. Megan Nelson represents the Nature Conservancy and Karen Stockdale represents Audubon. We have several staff that provide part-time contributions to the staff, including Max Malmquist, many of you work with him, who works on water transactions, Shayla Adams, who's our communications manager, and Emily Hamill, who works on GIS and technical matters. And we have other consultants as well. Trip Armstrong is our new program director. Adam Wickline is our senior program manager. And Bronte DeBroche is our new program manager who just joined us last week. Everything we do is essentially through the guidance and approval of the Trust Advisory Council. The council was set up by legislation, and there are 9 categories. The members are chosen through a nomination process. The trust nominates individuals to serve in these categories: agriculture, private landowner, conservation organization, and I should be telling you who these are. Agriculture is Spencer Gibbons from Farm Bureau. We have a private landowner, Jack Ray, as a shareholder. As soon as I do this slide, I'm getting advice to try to share a different window. I'll try that. Conservation organization for non-game avian species is Tim Brown with Tracy Aviary. Jordan Nilsson with Utah Trout Unlimited. He is the conservation organization working on Great Salt Lake issues and really brings a water transaction perspective. Tim Hawks represents aquaculture. Joe Havasey, mineral extraction. Water Conservancy District, Darren Hess, and wastewater treatment facilities, Jill Jones. Hang on a second. I'm going to try to share a screen again. Sorry. All right, I am not sure I can change the presentation mode on here. Do my best. Just to reiterate, our mission is to help preserve irreplaceable wetlands and waters of Great Salt Lake by working in collaborative partnerships and really focused on innovative water projects that can act as pilots as we try to continue to prove the concept that water can be provided for Great Salt Lake voluntarily, and we do this for the benefit of people and wildlife. We set a strategic plan for 5 years, from 24 to 2028. Our goals including protecting and enhancing water flows of up to 100,000 acre-feet per year by 2028, protecting and restoring at least 20,000 acres of wetlands and associated habitat around Great Salt Lake, conducting studies to identify key water distribution bottlenecks and contribute to improving at least 5 of them, as well as continuing to leverage the funding that we've been provided and achieve at least 25% match of the total expended state grant money. This year, we put out an annual report, and if you want more information about what we're working on and doing, please go to our website, gslwatertrust.org, and there is an impacts page where you can access this report. So really quickly, and I'm really sorry you can't see these slides better, we have the primary, I don't know, sorry, they say my slides aren't mission. How's that? Do you see water transactions?
Nope.
How about that?
We love your mission statement. It's still there.
Okay. All right. Now can you see anything?
Yes.
Marcelle, this is Paul Gedge. If you could
Yeah.
click on the slideshow drop-down menu, you may have to toggle your screen over to the other window. Under slideshow.
Yeah, in my PowerPoint.
Correct, in your PowerPoint.
Yeah, oops.
Under
There we go.
slideshow, if you would click set up slideshow, it's the icon underneath the menu bar. Just a
there you
little
go.
higher. Yep, right there.
And
There should be a window pop-up with 3 options.
Mhm.
You select the middle one. It may say something to the effect of kiosk mode.
Oh, okay.
And then hit OK.
Okay.
Then go ahead and click from the beginning and advance to the slide you desire.
How's that?
We're looking at a different window. If you drag the slide window over to your other monitor.
Which is hard since I don't have another monitor.
Okay, we now.
There you go.
Would you click from the beginning again? In the upper, just above where your mouse is? Thank you.
How'd that do it?
Sorry, this is a little awkward in a public meeting. If you could describe your setup. Do you have 2 monitors? Can you see the PowerPoint?
I just have one monitor. Sorry.
Marcelle, if you would click on do you currently see the Great Salt Lake updates for Great Salt Lake Advisory Council May 14th slide? Is that on a window in front of you?
Yes.
Would you do a command tab and switch over to your browser and then select share your entire screen? We believe it's an issue with the selection in Google Share.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe Adam, maybe you need to go up and plug in the, let me just stop sharing for a minute. Okay, now if I share again, is that, oh, maybe if I do the entire screen.
You're getting a thumbs up from Director Hassenegger.
Is it working? No.
It is working now. Go ahead and switch over to your PowerPoint.
Okay. How's that?
And then from the beginning. You look fantastic. You're receiving applause.
All right. So sorry, everyone. Oh my gosh. Okay. Now, can I make it advance? I don't think so. Okay. And then how do you make it advance? It's not advancing. All right, well, I'm just going to go back down here. Can you see this slide? Water
You can.
transactions.
And if you click play from current slide.
Okay. Well, let me just say, and I'm so sorry to be taking up so much time because I really want to hear from Waterleaf. But anyway, and most of the water transactions the trust has done to date are in the Jordan River, Utah Lake area. We're working on some transactions in the Weaver River Basin, and we've done a little bit in Bear River Basin. And so just to give you a sense of where we stand right now is in 2023, the year the trust started. We started with 54,000 acre foot baseline. We had about 7,200 acre feet that didn't get fully approved. In 2024, last year, we ended up with over 69,000 acre feet of water towards our 100,000 acre foot goal. The majority of the water is from the donation of the donation of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We have multiple year donations from Kennecott, Central Utah Water Conservancy District, and Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District, and a number of annual water transactions. So Adam said he's able to share. If I stop sharing.
Marcelle, if you can switch back over to the Google, click hide, and then switch back to PowerPoint. At that point, it should act like a traditional presentation and accept your arrow keys or mouse keys to advance slides.
Okay, I'll do it. So, I don't know. It looks like Adam's sharing now.
We have the slides visible.
Okay, thank you so much, Adam. So if you move to the next slide. We're anticipating this year that we may have at least 72,000 acre feet of water towards our 100,000 acre foot goal. This year, we already have done a transaction for 5,000 acre feet of water, and we anticipate another over 12,000 acre feet this year. Some of that, next slide. I've forgotten. That's okay. Keep going. And so we're doing a lot of this with so many partners that we have to acknowledge. And I think I've mentioned many of these. And there are some folks that we're doing water transactions with who aren't necessarily listed here either. But we know that this work can't be done without a commitment from a large collaborative effort. And so we're really thankful for all of those folks, particularly those who essentially donated water or leased water at very reasonable prices. Go ahead. So one of the transactions we did last year was to working with Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and the Welby Jacob Company, was to release 10,000 acre feet of water from Jordan, down the Jordan River from Utah Lake. We hope to do another one of these this September as well. The pieces are in motion for that. And next slide. And this is an interesting one because it takes a great deal of coordination, especially to do this in the late summer, September. And that is the water is released from Utah Lake and then travels down to Turner Dam and Lower Joint Dam. So that takes a lot of coordination among the commissioners on the river, Jordan Valley. They have to open the gates. They have to measure additional flows at 900,000 south, and then they have to do some calculations to know that that water is making it to Great Salt Lake. So we're really thankful for all that support. And That release in the late summer or early fall is really important also for the Jordan River, which tends to be fairly low at that time of year. So the more we can do water transactions that have multiple benefits, the better. Go ahead. So I'm going to really go through the wetland slides fast. How am I on time? And wrap up here. But the other $10 million of the trust funds needed to be spent on the restoration and protection of wetlands and habitat in the surrounding ecosystem in ways that benefit the lake hydrology. Next slide. So in 2023, we went out with a funding opportunity. In that program in 2023, there were 8 projects awarded for $8.5 million of the funding, with $6.5 million in match funding, and the acres that were identified for restoration and protection were 13,000 acres. The 2024 funding opportunity was done in partnership with Forestry, Fire, and State Lands, 4 projects, $5.5 million funded, and $1.7 million in matching funds for another 6,000 acres in protected and restored wetlands. And there's on our website, there's a map. You can click on that map. You can see the projects and you can learn more. That's okay, go ahead. And just, I'm going to talk briefly about the benefits, but we know that a lot of these projects have involved improved water conveyance and improved monitoring and measuring as well as improved habitat. And one of the key things for these projects is improving water control management has a side benefit of being able to control water in ways that help managers manage wetlands, manage Phragmites, and reduce some of the issues with invasive species. Go ahead. So just as an example of one, Burton Dam has just been finished. They're replacing canals and a structure in the sewer canal and the Burton Dam, installing gauges, and that is going to help deliver water through New State Duck Club and Farmington Bay Waterfowl Management Area and ultimately to Great Salt Lake. Next slide. And you can just see the differences in the control structures. These are stop logs and not particularly safe, but this gives a significant management control to the wetlands managers and in a way that helps us deliver more water to Great Salt Lake. Go ahead. Actually, back one. I just wanted to say, we had a little less than $1 million remaining in the $10 million funding. So working with Forestry, Fire, and State Lands, the Trust Council decided last week that we would go ahead, bump our funding up to another $1 million. So we have $1 million to go forward. And we'll do that jointly with Forestry, Fire, and State Lands that also potentially has another $1 million. And we hope to be able to go out with that funding opportunity sometime in June, but there will be a notice going out when that funding opportunity will be available. So we're excited about that. And so if you're somebody who's interested in submitting a project application, please keep that in mind, okay? And then just to give you a really quick update, this is from the end of 2024. The balance in the trust fund was $38.2 million plus a $2 million endowment fund. The $38 million and plus $2 million, which is over 40, sounds like we haven't spent money, but that's not the case. We have pending and estimated commitments of between $21 and $27 million, which means we have $11 million to $16.5 million of uncommitted funding to continue building the pipeline of additional transactions. Match has been an important requirement to date, and largely as a result of water donations, but not all water donations have been part of the match. But we've essentially matched about 160% of state money expended. And in terms of operational costs, between the interest generated, in-kind donations, we've essentially covered our operational administrative costs at a ratio of 1.8 to 1. So with that, I'm going to just wrap it up. Just to know, please visit our website or the CFU website if you're interested in more information, and that's gslwatertrust.org. Thanks. You can stop sharing now.
Thank you, Marcelle. Is there any questions for Marcelle?
Yeah, these are just extra slides, so you can stop sharing these.
Marcelle, I had a question. This is Angela Gong.
Yes.
You said there were about 12 million in potential transactions. I don't know how much of that is public, but can you give us a sense of where those might be coming from?
If you could say that again.
Sorry. You had mentioned no, not 12 million. Anyway, the potential transactions.
Yeah.
I don't know if all of them are public, but can you give us a sense of where those might be coming from?
Yes, we'll do another 10,000 acre foot release from Utah Lake down the Jordan River. And then there's another 2,500 acre feet in the Weber Basin. And so we'll be doing those two watersheds with that over 12,000 acre feet there.
Cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If there's no other questions, thank you very much, Marcelle.
Yeah, so sorry about all the slides problems, everyone. Thank you.
We're just glad you're human. Okay, now we're going to invite Waterleaf to start walking back up again. We won't interrupt you this time, unless Angela tells me I am. So you guys are going to need to get to that mic to talk so people beyond the three in front of you can hear you.
All right, good morning. I'm Steve Morrey, Project Director for Waterleaf.
And I'm Mark Mulligan, VP of Engineering and Projects for Waterleaf.
So I know we're running short on time, so we'll breeze through. There is a lot of information, so if questions at the end, we'd love to answer them. So before we get started, a little bit about lithium and what's going on in the global market. Obviously, right now, we produce about 1 million tons in the world. That is expected, the demand is expected to triple over the next handful of years, somewhere in the 3 million tons demand. Right now, the U.S. is not a significant producer. The U.S. right now domestically produces about 5,000 tons a year total in lithium. With our proposed project here at the Great Salt Lake, we would double that U.S. production in of itself. We would produce another 5,000 tons here domestically out of the Great Salt Lake. And that project right now is on track to come online in 2027. We are finishing up our pilot, and we'll get into what that pilot looks like today. And just as what this would do for the EV market, which is where most of the lithium is going right now, this project would produce about 1.7 million EVs. You may have heard two different companies mentioned. Lilac is the technology provider and the parent company. Waterleaf is a wholly owned subsidiary and the project company. So that's where you hear both Lilac and Waterleaf, based out of Oakland. Lilac started in about 2016. We have received a number of patents. We've also raised a substantial amount of money, thanks to our investors that you can see down on the lower corner of the slide. That's helping us move this project forward, which is where we're at as a company, ready to bring on our commercial scale project, which we anticipate being in about 2027. The technology that allows us to do that here at the Great Salt Lake uses less water, much less footprint, and accesses some of the brine grades that we see here at the Great Salt Lake, which are a little bit lower in the lithium concentration than we see around the world. Our beads or the media that allows us to extract, that's also produced here domestically. That's at our facility in Fernley, Nevada. So that, again, completing that domestic sourced lithium as well as how we extract it. The location of the project is up here on the north side of the Great Salt Lake, just a little bit northwest of the Spiral Jetty, about 2.5 miles, if you know where the jetty is. So that's where we're located there in Box Elder County. Our objective is to move into the commercial plant. This is a rendering at the same site of what that commercial plant would look like. Again, producing about 5,000 tons of lithium each year. Obviously, the impact would be to construct this facility, over 100 construction jobs, and then Lilac and Waterleaf would hire 65 direct team members to help run this facility. That allows us to get benefits back to Box Elder County as well as the lake. So Box Elder County, we intend to source locally team members, as well as all the other construction and natural things that happen during a construction project would come from local. The plant itself will obviously increase and pay taxes, but more so there's a royalty rate for extracting that lithium from the Great Salt Lake that would help fund everything we've heard today and get more water to the lake by putting that money back into it. I'm going to turn the time over to Mark to walk us through some of the technology.
Okay, so we'll just do a little bit of a deep dive here on how our technology works, and then we'll show you some pilot results that we're getting out of our pilot plant right now. So starting super high level, if you take water out of the Great Salt Lake and you pass it through our lithium extraction vessel, which is where our ion exchange media sits, that media selectively takes the lithium out, which allows you to then send the water back to the lake. So we do a non-consumptive water process. This is called direct lithium extraction, or DLE, out in the lithium industry. Our technology is one of a few different types of DLE technologies. Ours uses an ion exchange technology. So if we have a look just next level down, we take water out, we do a little bit of a filtration step before it goes into our ion exchange media, and then we refine it downstream from that. Let's do a little bit of a closer look at how our ion exchange media works. The analogy I quite often use is if you think of a water softener in your house that selectively takes calcium or magnesium out of your water. Ours does something very similar, it just is selective to lithium. It is also selective in terms of rejecting impurities that you don't want. So you'll see 4 vessels on the screen here. It's really just one vessel, and this shows you the different parts of a cycle. You start with passing water or brine through that vessel, and our media then selectively takes the lithium through that ion exchange process onto the bead, and it releases a proton. You then continue running the water through that vessel until you fully load all your beads with lithium. You then stop at that point and you move to the second step, which is a water washing step, where you're just purging the vessel of the brine that's inside the vessel, getting ready for the third step, which is the stripping step, or some people call it an elution step. And that step, then you pass a dilute acid through the vessel. There's 2 acids we can use, either sulfuric acid or hydrochloric acid. Here at the project at the Great Salt Lake, we're using sulfuric acid. And what you're doing there is you're passing the acid through the vessel, and you're doing the reverse of what you're doing in that first step. You're now releasing the lithium off of your bead, and it becomes lithium sulfate, and your proton is going onto the bead. Once you fully strip all your lithium off of your bead, You then move to the fourth step, which is another water wash step. There, once again, you're purging your vessel of any residual acids that may be in that vessel. These two water washing steps, the water coming out of there goes through a water recovery process. So we 100% recycle and reuse all the water within our facility. Okay, I'm going to go through a little bit more detail of other steps that we go through, really explained in box number 1 there. We do a brine filtration step to remove, box number 1, we're pumping the water out of the lake. Box number 2, we are doing a filtration step, really removing solids that's coming in with the water. Box number 3, we've just done that deep dive on how that works. The lithium coming out of that goes into an eluate, which takes you down now vertically on the screen to your eluate processing steps. There we do a bit of a neutralization step where we raise the pH to really just remove any residual calcium and magnesium that remains in that eluate. You do an evaporation step where you're driving off water and you're concentrating in that eluate stream. We recycle that water back in the process once again. And then we do a crystallization step. And that crystallization step, we use soda ash to convert that lithium sulfate to a lithium carbonate product. And that lithium carbonate, then you dry and you bag into super sacks and you send it off to your battery manufacturers who ultimately convert it into batteries. Coming back up to box number 4, the water that is now lithium depleted, we call it depleted brine, goes through another monitoring step just to make sure the pH is the correct level. You do a little filtration step there before it gets released back out to the lake. Okay, let's move on to what we're doing at our pilot plant. So all of those steps I explained, we have all of the processes in operation at the pilot plant, except that final conversion to that lithium carbonate powder. The reason for that is that's a very industry-wide process, and we do that step down in the Oakland facility, so we don't need to demonstrate that at the pilot plant. What comes out of our pilot plant is that eluate liquid stream. So there's 2 main objectives really that we are targeting at our pilot plant here. We are proving out our technology KPIs in terms of lithium recoveries and water usage, etc. And the second big important objective is really linking this to all the permitting steps that we are going through for our commercial facility. So we're working with all the regulators very closely, and all the information coming out of our pilot plant is feeding into that permitting process. The 2 numbers you see on the top right of the screen are the averages to date at our pilot facility. We have an average of about just under 70 ppm lithium in that water, with a very high magnesium to lithium ratio. So it's a high magnesium water. I'm going to move on, pass back to Steve.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. All right, so here we're going to go through some results of what the pilot has done over the last 10 weeks of operation. We do anticipate running for about another 5 to 6 weeks. As you can see here, this is a list of constituents that are on our permit from discharge for our discharge waters from DWQ. So this is everything we're measuring. What you're going to see is the graphs of what some of these look like as we've been running. Just a note, these ones here in this list that you will not see on those graphs is because they're just below the non-detect lit, that we just can't detect them, meaning that we're not picking any of it up, just as an FYI. All of this information, when we move into the commercial permit, will become publicly available, so you can digest it and get a little bit more deep into it if you choose. So Things to note here on the graph. The solid line is the brine water coming in. That's what we're measuring as it's coming into our facility. And the dashed line is the measurements of the brine water going back. And as you can see, they're very similar. That's what we want it to be. We don't want to be putting anything back in the lake that wasn't there before. A couple of the other lines that you'll notice there is the solid light blue line is the minimum detection level of any constituent. And then the dotted line is if the information was available historically on the Great Salt Lake, that's what that represents. Here's some more things that we've measured. And we pulled some selected ones here just to try to illustrate some of the points. If you'll notice, you can see that both iron and aluminum, some of the metals were high in our first couple of weeks of operation. The reason for that is in this pilot operation, we have metal frac tanks that the water goes into before it's discharged to the lake. And some of that sitting in those metal tanks was picking up some of those metals. As you can see, it flattened out after we flushed those tanks out. That is not part of a commercial design. It's just how the pilot operates. Again, some last graphs here. The one that to focus on is you can see that lithium's up in the left-hand corner there. Lithium coming in from the lake, and then obviously as we return it, it's less because that's what we're pulling out of the lake. Some field measurements, just as FYI of what we measure every time we go out to sample. The sampling is done once a week from DWQ as well as ourselves. We sample more during pretty much every day, but per regulations, those are the samples. All of those samples are sent to a third party, Chemtech Ford, where they do the analyticals, and then we compare and make sure. So it's not just information from Waterleaf. This is just temperature of the lake as it was coming in, and then obviously the one that we do monitor very closely, the pH field. We're returning that water at the same pH that it came in at. Okay, in addition to what we're required to permit and test and sample, we have hired Dr. Bonnie Baxter to look at the biota and the impacts that we may or may not be having on any of the biota that's in the lake. So we engaged her. Here you can see what we set out to do, which was to analyze and see any effects, both positive and negative. She's been engaged since February in this effort. And here are some of the preliminary results that she's gotten so far. We expect the rest of the study to be closed up here in the next handful of weeks, but we have done 2 sampling events. In February, water was a little colder. Obviously, the cells were a little bit less active than you can see by that number there. Per milliliter, it was a little bit lower than it was in our second testing of the biomass that was available in the lake. We didn't observe any in the discharge. Pretty much what we expected because it does run through our filtration system. However, the interesting fact is when we went back and tested another sample here just recently in April, obviously the biota mass had increased from the incoming brine. But the interesting fact is on our discharge, there was actually more biota after it went through our process. So end result, we're not having a negative impact on the biota. Seems to actually be doing a little bit better. So we look forward to the rest of her results and be able to insert that into our permit. From that, where we want to go with this pilot as we close out here again in the next 5 to 6 weeks is that will allow us to continue forward into our commercial application and all of those permits, as well as close down on our funding and move into construction in 2026 with a goal of being online in 2027. So thank you, and open to any questions. Yes, please.
Thank you very much.
Could you talk a little bit about volumetric changes in water as it goes through the filtration? Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about any volumetric changes in water?
Sure.
From influent to, from
Inflow to outflow?
That's the.
Please.
I'll answer in two parts: the pilot and then the commercial facility. So the water going back out is similar volume to the water coming back in. So we are proving non-consumptive there. We have some fresh water being delivered to our pilots on a weekly basis that we're using as washing steps. We do have water recovery within the pilot, but because we don't do evaporation at the pilots, we don't have that water recovery step. So we're using slightly more water at the pilot. At the commercial facility, though, we'll have all of that other additional water being recycled back.
Hi, I was wondering if you have an idea of how many acre feet you would plan to extract on an annual basis or divert on an annual basis to achieve that 5,000 ton metric.
Yeah. So at the 5,000 ton plant, we need about 25 to 30,000 acre feet of non-consumptive water.
And note that that is a non-consumptive number, so that 30,000 acre foot does go back to the lake.
I had a question about the timing of the lithium extraction. So if you're hoping to come online in 2027, how long do you expect to be able to extract lithium until it's either depleted from the system where you're extracting or it's no longer economically viable?
Yeah, so the facility's design life is 20 years. We've done independent studies. We're finishing up more of those studies on what is in the lake, but there's decades of lithium in the lake. Somewhere about 1.4 million tons sits in the lake today.
Specifically in the North Arm.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
I'm assuming that the pH of hydrochloric acid and sulfuric acid is about the same. So it was just a matter of, well, let's go with the sulfuric acid.
Not quite that simple, but sulfuric acid in the U.S. is more readily available, more cost effective. Obviously, we have right here with Rio Tinto melters that are generating sulfuric acid. So it's really the reason we have the two is what is available, because if you go to South America where we also do this extraction, hydrochloric acid is the more readily available acid.
My turn. All the good scientific questions have been asked. Now I have an infrastructure question. Let's say the pilot project goes well. Now you're going into commercial. You have to get your product out, I guess, and you have to get construction vehicles in and out. There'll be an ongoing process. There's a dirt road. Are you going to need to improve that? And if you do, will there be mitigation? Will there be dust mitigation? Who will be asked to pay for those improvements if you have to improve the road? Will it be the taxpayers of Box Elder County? He left. We can't ask him. These kind of things, like who pays for this stuff? It's obvious you're going to have to need some improvements. How are you going to do that?
Yeah, great questions. Okay, so yes, there's going to be traffic to get in. When we're in operation, the truck traffic is somewhere between 10 to 12 trucks a day. So it is a significant increase to what's out there today. It is a gravel road all the way from when you turn off, basically when you pass Golden Spike, you go on 16 miles of county maintained gravel roads. Our position and our plan with Box Elder County, we've not flushed this out, is with taxes, taking a portion of that to dedicate it to that road maintenance. We obviously can't maintain a county road, but we can certainly try to help influence where that money comes from. Yes, we will be a taxpayer, and so we would hope that that's where a majority of whatever infrastructure needs to be improved is coming from the facility that's driving that improvement. That's not really up to us, that's up to Box Elder, but we do anticipate supporting that tax base. For our road, we have about 2.5 miles of private road. It will also match the county road in terms of it will be a gravel road. We anticipate using dust suppressants on the road as well as helping the county to do the same.
Any other questions? If not, thank you very much. Appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Angela, as soon as you get back to your chair, you're up.
Okay, this is pretty short, but I want to update you on what the steering committee has been talking about looking at the fiscal year 2026, so starting in July, projects that GSLAC might fund. So as a reminder, GSLAC has $125,000 to be spent each year to forward our purposes, which is to inform priorities and narratives for policymakers. Let me move this. The broader GSL community and the public, and they need to be spent between this July and next June. And so we're trying to do this more accelerated timeline than we've done in the past, where about now we want to be finalizing scopes of work. We're not quite there, but we will work on it. So that's what I quickly wanted to update you on, and so that folks that we would like to contract with can start as soon as possible in the coming fiscal year. So we brought this up in the last meeting. The 3 projects that people were most interested and supportive of are updating the 2019 Consequences of Drying Lakes Around the World report. That was a really influential report that looked at a lot of lakes that are in at least some ways similar to Great Salt Lake, and looking at what the impacts would be as they are not doing so great, and trying to put Great Salt Lake in context. So the proposal is to update that. And so the steering committee is estimating that will cost around $35,000. The second one that folks are excited about was looking at win-win solutions and taking case studies from agricultural, municipal, industrial, and highlighting how those were done. So we're imagining the deliverables for that would be some sort of short, good-looking report that's easy to digest, that could talk to a wide range of audiences, and then also a video. And we're estimating that would be about $50,000. And then looking at, this wouldn't be the whole project, but at least doing a phase 1, looking at, can we rehost the GSLAC website and connect it to the other Great Salt Lake resources that are out there. We know that there are a couple of things that exist. So exploring options for again, bringing those together. And then hosting a groundwater forum as a special GSLAC meeting with focus on conservation, which you will notice is free. Or at least we're sort of thinking about what that might look like. So I think our big question, Leland, if you want to stir this a little bit more, our big question is, are these the right things? Do folks think, is there any feedback that you want to give us about the relative weighting in terms of allocating our funds for these projects? And then if you want to work further with the steering committee on scoping these, so specifically what will the RFP look like? We can have a little bit of a discussion now, but that will be what the steering committee will meet again about this month or next month going forward.
So are there any comments about what's been proposed?
You're asking the public, or you're asking the commission?
We're asking the council, and then we're going to ask the public shortly. So if nothing from the council, anybody from the public want to discuss any of those items? Sure, go for it.
Why not?
You're wrong.
I don't know. We don't have time for discussion. Obviously, we're running out of time. But I would like to go at some point to hear more in depth about these things. Like, why does it cost 50 grand to create a glossy document about a win-win solution? We know what a win-win solution is. Get water to the lake. I mean, do we need to pay 50 grand?
Well, what we're looking at is a more broad description of things that have been done that are providing that water to the lake.
That would be the kind of, that's what I want to hear.
This is a public relations issue, trying to get more people aware that there are things happening, but more needs to be done.
I guess I was just saying I'd like to have more time to go deeper in this, so you could explain things like that to us.
And Angela will spend all the time you need if you want to ask her.
And I will say the costs are based on historically what past projects have been done. And in the steering committee, other people have said, our organization has done something similar. Here's about what it costs. So we'll refine those as we go. But you're right. We don't want to just plop a bunch of money on something that's not worth it.
Plus, you're doing a video, which
Yeah. Yeah, turns out. Any other comments? Okay.
Anything else? If not, thank you very much. Back to the council. Do we have a motion to authorize the council to proceed with this? At the end, we have a public comment. It's in about 1.7 minutes if we get a motion. We have a motion to approve going forward. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, we'll move forward with that. Now we have a public comment. So if you have a public comment, we would take it.
My name is Scott Young. I live in Bear River, Wyoming. Actually, Bear River is my backyard, which is one of the reasons I'm interested in what goes on here, but also we have children and grandchildren that live here. And so we are very concerned about the future of the lake. So I have a suggestion, and it might fit in with this last item that Ms. Gong mentioned. I'd like to recommend that the state of Utah look at the feasibility of using floating solar on the lake and on its reservoirs. And if you're not familiar with it, there's a very good study that was done by the World Bank in 2018. You can Google it up. It's called Where Sun Meets Water. Colorado legislature authorized a study of putting floating solar on their reservoirs. It was delivered to the legislature in December. They concluded that if they put floating solar on appropriate locations, this isn't on every reservoir, and it isn't on every surface of the applicable reservoirs, that they could save 407,000 acre-feet of water a year. Sites are site dependent, so what they can do on reservoirs in Colorado may not work here. There's also an important issue with floating solar when it comes to environmental impacts. There was a study that was released on Monday that I think is in Nature Water, dealing with the impacts of floating solar on waterfowl. There's also a very good study that came out of China in October of last year that looks at those issues, waterfowl in particular, but also the biomass. I just think it would be an appropriate thing for this state of Utah to look at. I've made similar suggestions in connection with the Colorado River Compact. But if you become familiar with floating solar, it has a lot of benefits in terms of avoiding land use impacts. It also produces electricity, obviously, as a byproduct, which your state is starting to get a lot of interest in artificial intelligence, which draws a lot of power. Anyway, that would be my suggestion, that you consider looking at that and maybe talking about it with your council.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Go ahead.
Thank you. Excuse me. Dan Strzok with the Utah Audubon Council. My suggestion is, the council has an advisory mandate to the governor. And so perhaps as part of these meetings, not everyone, but at the right time, maybe a discussion of what the content of that advice would be. And then actually perhaps open that up for public comment as well. So, I think I've been attending just a little over a year now, so still trying to get a hang of exactly how it works. But I think it would be interesting to really understand what directly the council is communicating to the governor as far as Great Salt Lake, what needs to be done. Quite honestly, maybe continuing to change even legislative attitudes around actions around the Great Salt Lake. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other comments?
R. Jeffrey Hicks again. Sorry. I'd like to make a suggestion to the council that I've brought this up privately before, but I want to say it publicly this time. I would like to see a little bit fewer presentations in this meeting, and to give us more time to go a little more in depth. It seems like every time we're running out of time and we don't have time for questions. I had good questions for Darren. I had questions for Jessica. I had, a lot of things I'd like to get to. We don't seem to have a lot of time to get in depth. I think if you could, maybe a few less and more in depth. I mean, we all gave our time to be here, and it just seems like we don't have time to ask good, solid questions and go back to why we're here, represent the people that we represent, to descend, whatever the word is, the information back out. I would love to see fewer presentations. It does a disservice to the presenter and to us when we don't get to ask questions and get some more in-depth stuff. That's my suggestion.
Thank you. We'll pass that on to Tim. Any other comments? Not, thank you very much. Back to the council members. Is there any issues or priorities that the council members would like to bring up? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Thank you. Second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Thank you for everybody for attending.